Hello world, it's Travis Bowlin. Today on Kit Pit, we'll be working on motorized car kits. The first thing I want to do is take a look at these instructions. These were actually in Chinese, so I just looked at the photos to kind of get an idea of what I was building. For our propeller motor car, we have a motor, tires, axles, brackets, nuts and bolts to hook everything to the chassis, battery pack, the propeller, and a holder for the motor, as well as a switch. Next, for our belt-powered motorized car, we have 2 rubber bands, we have some pulleys, some tires, some lead wires, a battery pack, the chassis, the corner brackets for the axles. The axles, we have the motor, as well as a set of gears. They provided a small screwdriver to screw in your nuts and bolts. First thing I'm going to do is mount the gear power axle to the chassis. Now this is the axle that has the gear that gears up to the motor that actually moves the pulleys around that spin the belts around and actually make it, all-wheel drive. So what I'm doing here is I'm just putting these 2 orange pulleys on here before I install the wheels, and then lining them up with the chassis before I mount them with the corner brackets. I fasten the axles to the chassis with the brackets using the nuts and bolts provided with the precision screwdriver. Next, I installed the wheels to that axle. Next, I installed the 2 lead wires on the motor on positive and negative. Now the diagram showed them just twisting the wires on here, but you could solder these if you'd like. Next, I'm going to mount the motor to the chassis. We're going to place it in its little black housing and put our other gear on the motor and line that up with our gear that's on the axle. And then we're going to just drop 4 nuts in there and tighten it up with a little precision screwdriver. Next, I'm going to install my 2 brackets for my front axle. Once you have those brackets installed, then you can mount your axle, pulleys, and tires. Next, we're going to mount and wire our battery pack. We're going to mount it with a nut and bolt in the center, and then we're going to take the 2 leads from the motor and just twist them to the positive and negative on the battery. You could solder these wires, but the diagram just shows them twisted. Next, I'm going to take my 2 rubber band belts and match them up with the pulleys, lining up the back axle pulley with the front axle pulley on the left and right. Now let's start on the propeller motor driven car by adding the brackets for the axles, mounting these with the nuts and bolts and precision screwdriver provided. Then I'm going to add the tires to the axle and mount them to the brackets that's on the chassis. Next, we'll mount the battery pack. Next, we're going to install these 2 engine mounts to our chassis by using our precision screwdriver and screwing 2 screws up through the bottom, through the chassis, into the bottom of the 2 brass pillars. Now we're going to install the engine to the chassis. There's a bracket that goes around the engine and nut and bolts to a plastic platform. Then that platform bolts down to the 2 brass pillars that we installed previously. Next, it was time to mount the propeller to the motor and add the propeller cover cap. There was a 3-position switch that I mounted. When I wired it up, I realized it was only a 3-way speed switch and not an on and off switch, so I just left it unwired. The final step was to take the 2 lead wires coming from the battery pack and to twist them to positive and minus on the motor. Now you could solder these on, but the diagram just had the wires twisted, so I did that. And then they're done. Now let's play it and rate it. All right, everybody, now that I have the cars finished, I got Camille Ray back, and we're gonna race them. She's got the car with the propeller, and I'm using the ones with the pulley system. The winner. She says it's the winner. But we got a little start and finish right here in the parking lot, and we're gonna see who makes it to the finish line first. 1, 2, 3. Overall, I give these kits a 9. I wish the instructions were in English or there was an English link just for more of a beginner person. I think this is a great way to teach you how electric motors work in different ways that they can make propulsion. Thanks for watching the Kit Pit. Subscribe now for the latest videos.